Everyone's talking about the near-term stimulus, not one word about mid to long-term deficit reduction. That's too hot to handle. Very easy to talk about extending tax cuts. No one is serious about where to cut spending.
Now, yesterday on Meet the Press, though, Richard, there was a discussion. It seemed like everybody around the table said what everybody around this table understands, that the long-term debt is unsustainable, with one exception. Newt Gingrich, a guy who actually showed a lot of courage in the 90s when it came to balancing the budget, yesterday talked in generalities. And I find this fascinating. Right now, as far as major figures go, there have been 3 people who have acted like we don't have to touch middle-class entitlements, Social Security, Medicare. Nancy Pelosi, Newt Gingrich, and Jim DeMint. Jim DeMint. I was reading Pete Wehner's commentary last week, and he brought up the point that here this small government Tea Party champion is actually, oh no, we don't have to cut Social Security. We don't have to help. And Pete Wehner, who worked in the Bush White House, he said, okay, well, Jim DeMint, you need to do one of 2 things: either stop talking about being a champion of less government, or start acting like you're a champion of less government. It is inconceivable to me that anybody would paint themselves as a champion of small government and balanced budgets without admitting you've got to do something to Social Security and Medicare.
It's Willie Sutton robbed banks because that was the money. That's where the money was.
Yeah.
If you want to cut budgets and get government under control, you've got to deal with entitlements. That's where the money is. It's Medicare and Medicaid is the biggest single pot of money.
Right.
Add Social Security, interest on the debt. You've got to deal with the basics.
And the Pentagon's there too. Let's put in. Here's Newt Gingrich from yesterday on Meet the Press, and I just want to talk about it. I'm not picking on Newt. I'm the first to say this guy was a champion of balanced budgets, but he's sounding a lot like Nancy Pelosi here.
They get together, they issue a statement guaranteed to frighten most Americans, which is what it did. I mean, a number of people now calling me or emailing me about cutting Social Security is absurd because it's not going to happen. I helped working with Bill Clinton. We balanced the federal budget for 4 straight years. We paid off $405 billion in debt. It was not a trivial achievement. It can be done. It can't be done by sweeping, slashing generalizations by people who won't be affected. And I'm just saying that this commission, the deficit commission at the rate they're going, will actually be a step backwards.
Which is, it's stunning. He went on, and this is, you talk about pixie dust, Willie? They said, well, how are you going to balance if you don't touch middle-class entitlements? He said, well, waste, fraud, and abuse, which, by the way, why don't you just try to sell more of the spectrum, okay? That is a scam, and you know it. And then he said, reduce spending back to 2008 levels. That'll save $1 trillion over the next decade, and maybe that will save some money over the next decade. But that is laughable. It is irresponsible, and I just wonder whether we are seeing, and young Republican freshmen coming in, you better buck Jim DeMint up and Newt Gingrich and people like this. This is, Mark Halperin, this is a disaster for the Republican Party. It is. We've seen this movie before where Republicans say one thing to get elected, and then they get elected and they become cowards. And it looks right now like Nancy Pelosi has some friends on the right who are acting like cowards. You've got to cut Social Security over the next 50 years.